Hey, Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
How you been, girl? It's been like, I feel like all of us,
Yes.
America,
Yeah.
world, Mr. Worldwide, Pitbull, like we are going through it. Everyone's going through it.
It's just the beginning.
We have just begun. I wanted to say this. Maybe this is too early, but I don't care. Gene Hackman died today.
I know.
And like, and in a weird way, I was thinking about him today. Obviously, there's a lot of news about it. I was thinking about him in relation to our subject today, and how, like, again, a very American everyman who very serious, very funny, was doing popcorn things, but also like Academy Award bait things.
Right. Paths crossed quite a bit of times. The movie Power, Crimson Tide, it's not like they were separate entities either, really.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But so rest in peace to Gene Hackman. Loved you in The Replacements. Truly, madly, deeply. One of my first DVDs.
I'm a little shocked you didn't go with Heartbreakers, but okay.
Heartbreakers is maybe one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. But you know what? Gene Hackman could, okay?
True.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject, such as an actor, director, or a mini genre. We take a whole month. We watch as much as we can, and we read as much as we can. And we take all that information and we give it back to you. And then we tell you what we like and what we don't like.
The reviews are, in fact, mixed.
Mm-hmm.
The day is trained. The bones are collected.
I am inside man.
The debates are great.
I feel equalized.
Yes. So yes, we do little hot takes here and there. We mix up the reviews. We have a lot of fun. So thank you for coming back to us. This is episode 10 billion or whatever.
Or whatever.
Yeah. We didn't have a poll because our last episode was our recap of last year.
Yes.
The Oscars, LOL, are this weekend.
Yeah.
We talked about No Other Land maybe not getting a spot, and it did.
And it did.
She's nominated.
I'm gonna end up being wrong again, but like it's not gonna win, and I'm gonna be mad when it doesn't win.
I love that in my heart, Gavin. You saying this is part of the magic that is going to make it win.
I hope so. I hope in all, like, your lips to whoever's ears, like, yes,
to Denzel's
God's ears. I want it to win. Obviously, like, it was my favorite film of last year. It was so affecting, so moving, so informative, and just truly, like, the power of cinema. It changes things for people, and yeah, but
you have no faith. You have no faith.
But I have no faith. Faithless.
Yeah.
I'm Faith No More.
Okay, honey.
If I could name a Faith No More song, I would start singing one now, and I cannot.
You're just Faith Evans.
I'm Faith Evans.
The New York Times projectionist guy is predicting that it will win. So
oh, nice.
So who can ever be sure?
What does he know? He just sits behind a camera projecting movies all day. Is that what you like?
Yeah. If Oscars is your thing, have fun this weekend. If they're not, go see another movie, whatever. Oh,
to paraphrase Steel Magnolias, if Oscars is your thing, go have fun this weekend, and if not, come sit next to me.
Very much that. I wanted to say, Gavin, we didn't talk about this, but maybe some like old business that we should talk about is, I don't know if you guys knew this. Me and Gavin have this Patreon show, Gavin and Louie Go to the Movies. We use your Patreon money to buy ourselves Alamo Drafthouse season
passes
to go see these movies. In the last couple of weeks, I mean, I think we kind of knew that the Alamo Drafthouse had been bought out by some evil overlords. Were doing not so great things.
Yeah.
But within the last couple of weeks, it kind of reached a boiling point, and the workers, at least here in New York, that are unionized, went on strike. I
think it's New York and Colorado specifically. And essentially, like, not to get too deep into the weeds, but they fired a ton of people in an anti-union sort of move as well, too. It was sort of against the union rules,
right,
and just unfairly in general, and did tell them that they would maybe have the opportunity to be hired back in the spring when there's more movies, which is like salt in the wound, I feel like.
Gross.
And so, so obviously our last episode of Gavin Louie Go to the Movies was early January. We've not done one since. And part of that is because we've had complicated feelings. Obviously, neither of us are going to cross a picket line.
I wanted to bring this up just to say we are going to cancel our season pass. We have no other old business though, right?
No.
Okay, so then let's get to it. We are defeating Huns. We are talking about one of like the greatest of all time. Like I don't think it's hyperbole to say that. We are tackling Mr. Denzel Washington, truly an American icon, legend. Just it was a heavy lift. This episode, obviously, he's been in a ton of movies.
Yeah.
But you know, and I'm gonna say like I certainly didn't watch everything, but I did as best as I can. We have crossed paths with him before.
Yes, many times. And it's funny. So if you go back to 2017 when we started the show, there was a document that Louis and I made, a Google Drive document that has a list of like intended subjects, some insane if Louis were to go look back at it, but some like very like the high idea. And obviously our show was a little different back when we started. We didn't have the format down the way that we do now, but there's a list of names of actors, actresses, directors we wanted to, and we haven't hit them all, and especially the more complicated ones, but like one of the very first is Denzel Washington. And we've just sort of put it off because it feels so large. Because as you said, like he is our greatest living actor, essentially.
Yeah. He's, you know, when I was mentioning Gene Hackman earlier and I was thinking about Denzel, it's like, it's kind of crazy how Denzel can do anything and make some money doing it. Like he will be in prestige dramas. He will be in Shakespeare adaptations. He will be in popcorn action flicks. He like, you know, there's, I would argue that like the entire TBS TNT movie universe is like resting on his shoulders. Like he's done it all. Like it's wild. It's kind of astounding that the how much he has shaped American cinema. Like we mentioned, like, so where have we seen him before, Gavin? We talked about him in our Spike Lee episode with Malcolm X, Mira Nair's Mississippi Masala, Much Ado About Nothing with Emma Thompson.
Yes. Okay. I was trying to figure out I was like, what episode did we do? I was like, I know we have.
Remember the Titans for Ryan Gosling?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Mean, like, I'm sure we're missing some because he just really is. But I mean, we've talked about Philadelphia before with Antonio
Banderas.
Antonio Banderas, right? So yeah, he's all over our body of work as well. What's the Chris Pine movie? Unstoppable.
Oh, Unstoppable. Yeah. Okay. Like, all right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Was that your Denzel?
That was my Denzel. That was I will never do it again. Thank you very much.
It's pretty good.
Oh, thank you.
Say. So yeah, I mean, Gavin, do you remember your first Denzel?
You know what's funny about this? My first Denzel, which is why I can never hate this movie, is probably this probably can't be my first, come to think of it, because I feel like it's so late in his career or so like midpoint in his career, and I'm buying myself time so I can look it up. But 1995's Virtuosity, I guess that's only 12. That makes me 12. And actually
that's probably early. It's pretty early.
And actually probably 11. I saw Virtuosity at the drive-in movie theater.
Wow.
And let me tell you, it was so fun when you are an 11-year-old.
Yeah. I didn't even know this movie existed. And I think like I decided to watch it because it's mentioned in the latest New York Times Magazine article about his career. And I was like, let me see what this is. And I was like, oh, this is a crazy movie. One of those, it joins The Net as 90s movies that didn't know what the internet was, but decided to like pop off.
You know what it really reminded me of? And we'll probably end up talking a little bit more about it later, but it reminded me of like Demolition Man, if Demolition Man wasn't fun.
Yes. And the thing is, like, I was ready to be like, oh, here comes my 1 star with Virtuosity.
Right.
And it's like really fun.
It's fun. It's just not as, it just doesn't have anything like the 3 seashells, like Demolition Man. You know, that's the, like nothing that I can like quote and have fun with. And also I think that he kind of lacks some chemistry with the lead. Though, funny enough, there was apparently a sex scene and Denzel Washington asked for it to be removed.
because he's a good Christian man, which we will get to.
What was your first Denzel?
Do not throw tomatoes at me. I really do think it was like watching friggin' Remember the Titans in school or something. I mean, you're a little bit younger than me, and that doesn't come too much further down the line. So it's like, 2001 or something like that? 2000, okay. So like I was in middle school-ish. Yeah, I was middle school, and
we watched a scene from Glory, I want to say in like 8th grade social studies, but at that point, I would have seen more of Denzel anyways.
I think I saw more of him as I grew up and went back, obviously, through this project as well. I was shown The Hurricane in college at like I think it was like a film lit class, was like really taken with him. Same thing with Much Ado About Nothing. But yeah,
he's so good in Much Ado About Nothing.
I know. Truly. The thing about him is like, he's always just, for at least for like our lives, always been part of the Hollywood establishment. He's just always been there. And he kind of goes through these modes of like, kind of everyday man who's got to figure out the thing, right? Like John Q type vibes. Or he's like literally a fucking superhero. Like, and it's
the perfect middle ground for that, by the way, and I don't know if you ended up getting to watch it because it's such a kind of silly movie, is Deja Vu. Because Deja Vu fully hangs on the fact that he's the person who like every 5 minutes is going like, this is crazy. This is so stupid, you guys. You are all stupid. Get me out of here. And it like all works because that movie, he's like in the superhero role, but is like, no, I'm just a normal guy and this is fucking stupid.
Right. Unlike Equalizer, where he's like, yeah, I'm a superhero.
Yeah, whatever. No, I'm invincible. I'm basically Jason from the Friday the 13th movies, except you like charismatic.
And also I'm 68 years old.
Yeah, also that.
He also has his Shakespeare mode, obviously with Much Ado, also Tragedy of Macbeth, which we talked about in our
Coen Brothers Peppers. Yep, there you go.
Yep. He also has his like, which I think is a very important part of his body of work, is the historic American story mode. Great Debaters, American Gangster, obviously Malcolm X.
And we probably won't get to it in this episode, but like a ton of documentary work, a ton of narration, a ton of talking head. Like in that vein, carrying over from what you were saying, like he is sort of the bookkeeper of the great American story, especially in the Black experience too.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but like he's producing all those fucking August Wilson movies, and starring obviously in Fences with Viola Davis, who like it's him and Viola, just like it just makes sense, and they are two of our best. And so with that being said, why don't we get into our rewind?
Denzel Hayes Washington Jr. was born December 28th, 1954 in Mount Vernon, New York. His mother, Lennis, also known as Lynn, owned a beauty parlor, which I actually think she didn't get until after his parents' divorce.
Yeah, I think I read that as well.
His father, Denzel Hayes Washington Sr., was an ordained Pentecostal minister who also worked like 4 jobs. Yeah. He was an employee of the New York City Water Department. He worked at a local S. Klein department store. So he was just sort of, as Denzel has said, like he was there to like keep the lights on, keep the kids like fed and whatnot.
Is there also like, am I misremembering this, that his dad is friends with Ludacris's dad?
Yes. Or he's friends with Ludacris's dad.
Oh, Denzel is friends with Ludacris's dad. Yeah. That's
once
right.
Again, once again, Denzel, 1954.
Correct. Sorry. Yes. Isn't that crazy? Like Ludacris, who's a star in his own right, is like, yeah, my dad's good friend, Denzel.
Denzel? You might have heard of him, Denzel Washington. When he was 14, his parents divorced, and his mother sent him to a private preparatory school, Oakland Military Academy in New Windsor, New York. Washington has said, this is what ends up changing his life, because he wouldn't have survived in the direction he was going. The guys that he was hanging out with all the time have done maybe 40 years combined in terms of penitentiary time. Yeah. They were nice guys, but the streets got to them, he said, in quotes. Uh, and he ends up attending mainland high school in Daytona Beach, Florida from 1970 to 1971. He's talked a lot about that time. In fact, I don't know if you saw earlier this year, there's that really embarrassing interviewer. I don't want to drop which website he works for. I don't want to say his name, but there's just like basically a montage clip of him like kind of getting owned by his interview sources and the one for Denzel was he was interviewing him for Gladiator 2 and he's like, I like to start all my interviews with a curveball and I'm wearing a Kubrick shirt. What's your favorite Stanley Kubrick movie? And Denzel was like,
I'm not a movie buff. No, I'm not a big movie fan. I was in the street when he was making movies. He was what's the ones in the 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be the one outside looking to rob you when you came out of a Kubrick movie. Okay? So I wasn't a real film buff. I didn't start acting until I was 20 years old and didn't start really going to the movies till I was 20, 22, 23.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't know, like he's like, I maybe saw like Shaft when I was a kid, but like,
yeah.
So he was hanging with a crowd. There's also, you and I talked a little bit about this before the episode began, but there's this really fantastic Esquire article called The Book of Denzel, as reported to Ryan D'Agostino, who's a journalist. And he talks about the friends that he has lost that he grew up with that are
his
no longer
friend
with
who,
us.
like, killed his brother. Like,
yeah,
it's very. I mean, it was very hard to not think about our Viola episode, which I famously cried in. But just because like they are both products of where they are from, and also had the chance to change their destinies, by I think he mentions that like his teachers before he got sent off to the other school were like, he is smart and he has potential, like you need to get him out of here.
Yeah.
And overcomes those challenges, like the things that like the cards were stacked against him and Viola fucking growing up in a house like overrun with rats and shit. Like, that does what happened to both of them doesn't happen for a majority of people. And like, thank God, there were the right people there to help them both out to get on their path and to like let their stars shine. Like, who knows how many people have those talents and that just never get the chance and opportunity to really bloom into these great artists. So yeah, and he's very frank about like, I know I'm like the most famous best actor like you will ever know, but like my life could have been very different, and like most of the people that I knew growing up, it's very different. Like it's funny to think about how all of his kids are now actors and like what their lives
or just in the business in general, because I think one of his daughters is actually a producer, but like
it's funny to think like, in one generation he's been able to like get go down this different path in life that most of his peers were on, and his kids now are just like living the Nepo baby fantasy.
Also, just real quick, his father was very big into the like Boys and Girls Club.
That's right. The Boys and Girls Club is very like critical to his childhood.
He said, I grew up in the boys club in Mount Vernon and we were the Red Raiders. Like, and so it was a big impact on him as a kid. And it has sort of been like a huge deal with him over his life. And then he sort of has this weird period of indecision. He goes back home. He loves to tell this story about this woman that his mother would do the hair of.
March 27th, 1975, a prophet named Ruth Green prophesied that I would travel the world and preach to millions of people. I was I had flunked out of college. I was in my mother's beauty shop and she kept looking at me in the mirror. And every time I looked up, she was looking at me. So she wrote it down. I still have a piece of paper. I've told this story before. Yeah, I was up in Mount Vernon and I was told to take a semester off from school to think about my, what I wanted to do. And every time I looked up in the mirror, I saw this woman looking at me. And she said she was having a prophecy. She said I would travel the world and preach to millions of people. She didn't say anything about me being an actor or getting back in school, but I have traveled the world and I am speaking more and more.
This era is when he's feeling at his most lost. So like obviously hearing this does a great deal for him. Also, he then takes a semester off and starts working as the creative arts director of an overnight summer camp at Camp Sloan YMCA in Lakeville, Connecticut. And there just happened one night, they do a staff talent show that he participates in, and all of his colleagues are like,
hello?
Yeah, what are you doing? Like, you're so good at this.
But acting sort of chose me. I used to do a lot of work with children, so I was working at a YMCA camp, and we put on a little skit the counselors did for the kids. And I got up there, and I remember this guy, Miles Joyce, when I came off the stage. And I had already flunked out of college. Let me preface it with that.
Okay.
So I tried everything else. And he said, man, you that was like, you ever thought about like being an actor? I was like, nah. He said, you should think about it.
This is a man that is a product of social services. The service of Boys and Girls Club, the services of the YMCA. Like those are, clubs that are, their entire purpose is to serve the community and to like get people off the streets and like give them things to do. And imagine that, like find things that you're good at and like put you down a path. Like these are all, imagine we're like using community resources that are so vital to people. Like it's, oh, America.
Oh man. I need a second. Wow.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, you're right. He ends up returning to Fordham in the fall with sort of a renewed purpose. He's no longer feeling as lost anymore. And then he enrolls at the Lincoln Center campus to study acting, where he ends up like in his first year cast in Eugene O'Neill's The Emperor Jones and Shakespeare's Othello. He has said, there was a teacher there that had always wanted to do that, and they just didn't have the students to do it. Anyways, oh boy. He then attends graduate school at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, California, where he ends up only staying for about 1 year. And then he returns to New York to begin his professional acting career. And he has said, like, there's some politics at play and doesn't really want to talk about it. But also, by that point, he had already, like, done his first TV movie. So he was like, I don't need this. I'm here. I've arrived. And that TV movie, by the way, is 1977's Wilma. You can find a couple different copies of this on YouTube. It's a docudrama about sprinter Wilma Rudolph, and essentially he meets his wife on the set of Wilma.
Incredible.
Yeah, she's one of the other people in the cast. She's not Wilma herself. And they have a great story about how they met, and it's very adorable, and I will let them tell it.
The first movie I ever did, TV movie, was about Wilma Rudolph. And I played Wilma Rudolph's boyfriend, became her husband, and Pauletta was one of the track stars in the.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I met her then, but I didn't meet her then.
Yeah.
Right. I saw her then.
A mutual friend of ours, who was also in the film, had given a party, and Denzel and his friends came at the very end of the party. We spoke again, we were reintroduced. And then the next night, I attended a play, and I got there late. So I snuck in and just sat down. I didn't look at who was around me. And at intermission, the lights came up, and we were sitting next to each other.
He also ends up making his big screen Hollywood appearance in Carbon Copy in 1981. We have to pause. And we have to talk.
And we have to pause.
We have to. Yeah, we have to talk about Carbon Copy. I know you watched it.
I did.
I suffered through it. So like,
it's funny. We have to first say, like, Denzel is aggressively handsome. I think it is no coincidence that, like there are brilliant Black actors throughout history. Of course, looks help. And I think especially for Black men who are stereotypically thought to be, looking imposing or scary or, all that shit, like, it fucking helps when you have a smile like Denzel does.
Yes.
Because he immediately needs to be palatable for the wide audience.
Yes.
This movie, Carbon Copy, is like right off the bat, like race relations in America and how crazy that is.
Right.
It's like kind of a satire, wants to be. It's like dark-ish comedy send-up thing. I think obviously this movie's trying to be like very liberal for its time.
Yeah. Well, I think it falls into the trap of what a lot of people accuse 30 Rock of, which is that like, it's like, oh, we're going to go so crazy into the other direction to be like people that are conservative are so crazy that it like comes like the liberalness of it gets lost because like everybody's so fucking despicable. Even the like the guy who learns his lesson, George Segal's character, essentially, by the way, I guess we should explain George Segal.
This movie is about.
Yeah, this movie is about George Segal is a businessman. Is he a lawyer? What is his deal? Yeah, sure. Denzel Washington comes into his life after his mother has died, and he's like, I'm your son. And this man had an affair with a black woman many years ago, and essentially the father of his wife like kind of paid to make it go away. And he like now his life is up in ruins because he has
a black son.
He has a black son, exactly.
And he's married to a white woman who is like the worst and has a daughter who is the worst.
But so George Segal's character like literally first of all attempts to rape his wife and then actually succeeds in raping his wife later in the film, and he's the guy we're rooting for.
There are parts of this movie that I thought were funny. There is some writing in this movie that I was like, that's fucking funny. Because there's a whole scandal where I believe it's Denzel who says Jesus is black. And
it was George Segal actually says it as like kind of a joke, like
right. There's like a joke. Oh yeah. George Segal says, and he's like, you need to apologize.
Right.
Jesus is white. He's like, how do you know that? He's like, well, because God is white, so his son needs to be white. And he's like, well, my son isn't white. I thought that was funny. And
I don't know. I had trouble cracking a smile there. I was like, when will this end?
I just thought like it's 1981. They were like, we're not even going to try and live in the world of possibility. Like, Denzel Washington, super dark skin. Like, it makes no sense. Like, it's very nonsensical. But you can tell they're trying to like push buttons. Like, they tell him like, do not whistle the African American national anthem. Like, they're like, in this house you don't. So they're very much trying to like be like, fuck. All like let's push some buttons. Obviously, I don't think it's successful. But I will say Denzel, handsome as hell, charming.
Not to compare him to another black actor, and especially because Eddie Murphy only joined SNL in 1980, but it was very clear that was the vibe they wanted out of Denzel.
I didn't even consider that. You're right, totally.
And I don't know like what like. But it was like clear that was like on the brain of the people making the movie.
I don't believe it. Lorraine was a lovely person, intelligent, cultured. It's just too much of a shock for me to accept you as her son.
Well, if that's too much of a shock for you, you're liable to go into a coma when you get behind this. Hi, Daddy.
I don't want to belabor too much on Carbon Copy other than I hated it. But he also ends up getting a 1982 Distinguished Ensemble Performance Obie Award with the rest of the cast of A Soldier's Play, which was off-Broadway at the time, that premiered in November 20th, 1981. But Denzel's big career break ends up coming when, in 1982, he's cast as Dr. Philip Chandler in NBC's television hospital drama St. Elsewhere. He remains on St. Elsewhere until 1988, so he spends all 6 years on it. He's the only African-American actor to appear on basically every episode of the entire 6-year run. Wow. And during that time, he ends up doing... I think the situation is that he is given either time off or during the summer seasons he is working. And goes back to what you were touching on at the beginning, is that like his love of acting is about the acting. Like, he's doing TV, he's doing plays, he's doing movies. Like, he loves being an actor and he loves the art form of acting. Those movies that he's in during the time that he's on St. Elsewhere are A Soldier's Story, which is the big screen adaptation of A Soldier's Play in 1984, Hard Lessons in 1986, and Power in 1986. Power is Richard Gere. He's like a campaign manager. He's constantly drumming his things. And he really is constantly just drumming his things.
Drumming.
You also have Gene Hackman, and actually, I think this is maybe one of the lesser good performances from Gene Hackman in a movie. I was like, has Gene Hackman ever met a drunk person before? But essentially, like, Denzel Washington hires Richard Gere to fix this campaign for him, but at the same time is like kind of out to play Richard Gere for a fool. Maybe he plays like a very bad man, but in the way that Denzel Washington plays bad men, which I think is another interesting thing. When Denzel Washington is playing a villain, they are very convinced of their own, like, everything that
moral
they
high
do.
ground.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything they do is in service of something they believe,
right?
That they deserve, and they want, like, that they're bucking the system because either it's revenge or it's a place that they deserve to be. And I think that's an interesting thing, because I think everybody always talks about, like, oh, every villain thinks that they're the hero of their story. I don't think that's necessarily what Denzel is doing when he plays villains, but he is playing them as though they have a goal to achieve, and unlike a normal person, are willing to cut the throats that they need to cut to get to that goal.
Look, we just wanted you to know that if you really did try and screw us, that something bad could happen to you. Now, that's the message we were trying to convey. Now, the plane, the phones, merely dramatic illustrations. Don't you walk out on me. Oh, you think it's all some kind of game, don't you? Huh? You just walk in, you jerk the locals around, you put in who's ever paying you, and you leave. Well, it is no fucking game. Look, you are deciding who's running this country, who's running other countries. Now, I care about that. My clients have to deal with the consequences. You don't give a shit.
Right, because even in the cutting of the throats, like, his cause is just because, like, he wants to win. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And if I'm going to win and someone has to, like, fall by the wayside, like, then so be it. It's so interesting that, like, he's a rare breed of person who's able to do TV and kind of easily transition back and forth. We've had some people do that, like George Clooney, but, like, it's very rare, especially in this era where it's like, if you were a TV person, like, you are banished to TV, forever.
I thought of the George Clooney comparison actually too, because George Clooney obviously starts on a medical drama as well with ER. I think the difference is that Denzel manages to sort of straddle both worlds back and forth, whereas once
George
Clooney
has to, like, finish and then
once he
on.
took off, he, like, was like, okay, I'm doing movies now, like,
right. And also what's also crazy is it's like the amount that is prolific, like, off the bat. It's like he gets the show, he gets all these movies, and starts racking up, like, Oscar nominations, like, pretty quickly. It's kind of a meteoric rise for such a young person who didn't have really any ends anywhere. It's just like the talent was so apparent.
And speaking of that Oscar nomination, 1987, he ends up starring as South African anti-apartheid political activist Stephen Biko in Richard Attenborough's Cry Freedom. And he ends up getting an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor in that movie. I watched this movie, even though it's 3 hours long, and I think Denzel is great in it. So no, like, he definitely deserves that nomination. But I think the movie is very flawed. It's him and Kevin Kline, and the movie is about sort of a two-hander, even though there's many other people in it. It's Stephen Biko, who is this anti-apartheid political activist, and Kevin Kline as this white reporter who's, like, trying to get his story out, and, like, the stuff that he faces in an attempt, like the threats to his family, the like itching powder given to his children and whatnot that causes. But in the third act, it then mostly becomes, how is this white guy going to get out of South Africa and tell this story? And that's
kind of classic, I guess, for,
right. And that's the frustrating thing, is it's like white savior towards the end.
I will say, I think a lot of his movies kind of suffer from that.
Yeah.
and I was thinking about that.
Well,
Like I was like,
I mean, the next Glory, the next one is very that.
So I mean, we can talk about Glory 1989. Like it's a when I saw, I've never seen this movie before, but I saw it for this, and I was like, oh, this is about, black soldiers. LOL, it's about fucking the white guy who's in charge of the black soldiers, and like how he's what's it? It's Matthew Broderick. Which I at first I was like, this is a crazy casting, but it kind of works because like you kind of need sensitive. I think you kind of need sensitive boy like in that role.
I could not disagree with you more.
Really?
I understand what you're saying about like sensitive. I actually agree with that. I just think he's like so in over his head and so just like kind of neutral ground the entire time.
I will say, like, I think the vibe is he has seen horrors of war.
Yes.
Right? Like he's very shell shocked. I also kind of felt like in the movie he is a Nepo baby. I'm like, why is he in charge of this? Like there's really no reason except like daddy is like has power and has put him in charge. And so the vibe is kind of he's in over his head.
Yeah.
But anyway, the movie's very much like white guys teaching black guys, how to be good American soldiers, and like what a good thing it was for these whites to let black people have like, I don't know, dignity, respect, freedom. But yeah, like, I was thinking a lot about like, okay, so Denzel Washington is, Hollywood's icon in this time when, civil rights and liberties for black people are, always in fluctuation, always in, and it's part of me is like, is it better? Are we better off with these, movies? Like, do we need, like, it's the idea of like incremental steps type thing,
Right.
I don't, this idea of mine is not fully formed, but I was like, is it more of a service or a disservice? A part of me is like, I'm glad that like Gloria exists.
Right.
I'm glad that like, the hurricane exists, but like, are they perfect movies?
Right.
No, but like they are, kind of, we got to get the black people in front of the whites who are scared somehow.
Right.
And it's like not perfect. And like, I feel kind of gross saying that, but like, we're not in a perfect world. Like
Right. No, I think you have a point. I just wish I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, in fact, but I just wish that like we were in a better place than like, so there's this very famous scene in Glory. Glory is about the first black troop of soldiers that were fighting for the Union in the Civil War. And there's a scene where Denzel Washington,
I know.
Denzel Washington disobeys. He runs away, which you then find out later that it was because he was trying to get shoes for the
grotesques.
For his fellow soldiers because they didn't have shoes and they were being worn through. But he ends up having to be whipped. And the thing is, historically, and I'm not saying that stuff like this probably didn't happen because it maybe did, but historically, like whipping another person in the armed forces was illegal at that point in time. And so there's nothing to say that actually happened. And that feels like a Hollywood creation to be like, look at this inhumanity, white audience that we're putting this black person through so you can understand that they are human as well.
Right.
And it shouldn't take that much, but it does. And so I think I'm like saying yes to what you're saying.
Oh, I see. So the white man give you a couple of stripes. Next thing you know, you hollering, ordering everybody around like you the master himself. Nigga, you ain't nothing but the white man's dog.
What are you? So full of hate you just want to go out and fight everybody. Because you've been whipped and chased by hounds. Well, that might not be living, but it sure as hell ain't dying.
So he wins the Academy Award for Glory.
Right.
And I will say that scene you're describing, harrowing, and he is just incredible. Like he's not, that's the power of Denzel. He doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to like, go big or whatever. He's just kind of standing there taking it. And like the camera fucking loves him and is just like slowly going on him. And like he gets the one fucking tear down perfectly. Like it's almost cliche how perfect the entire, like the scene is, because he just eats it all the way up. You can see everything, all the trauma, all the pain in his face and eyes, and he doesn't say anything. It's incredible.
I agree, and he deserves that Academy Award for that movie that I don't particularly like that much, but I think he's great in it. I also real quick, and I promise to be very fast before we leave. Unsung hero of that movie, Andre Braugher. I love Andre Braugher. R.I.P.
100%.
But like literally, why was Andre Braugher not like one of the biggest stars in the world during the time that he was alive?
Yep.
Also, around the same time, he's in The Mighty Quinn and for Queen and Country. For Queen and Country, bad. The Mighty Quinn,
Silly Billy.
I really liked it. I actually was like, why don't we make movies like that? The Mighty Quinn is a detective movie. It's a buddy cop film. It's a mystery. It's a political thriller. It's a fucking musical. Like, it's a musical. Like,
also shout out to Robert Townsend.
Townsend.
I must say, like, I think the vibe of Denzel also is like all boats are lifted, whatever that fucking metaphor is.
Yeah.
Because like
high tide raises all boats or whatever.
Yes,
like,
I mean, because we get Robert Townsend, we get Andre Braugher, like we are getting other very fucking good black actors who, and again,
Morgan Freeman in Glory. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a part of me is like, it took someone as handsome as fucking Denzel to knock down all those doors and to make these films to populate with these other actors who are just as good but not as handsome as Denzel.
And let me tell you, there is a lot of women who play wives of Denzel Washington in these films, and some of them are great and some of them are memorable, but very few are like on par with Denzel as much as Cheryl Lee Ralph in The Mighty Quinn, who is just giving it to him with her Jamaican patois, just like the whole. And
she's a pop star.
And she's a pop star.
You change on me, Lola.
I did not change. You changed. You know something? I'm not going to fall into this trap, Xavier.
What trap?
The trap of being your stupid little wife while you run around messing your head up with shit you said you never even wanted.
All I was trying to do was find a way. I'm trying to make it better for both of us.
How? How? By waiting to get invited to the governor's lawn parties? Well, let me tell you something. You never will be because you're not one of them. But then again, you're not you either. So tell me, who are you?
Like Mighty Quinn, good time.
Silly Billy, good time.
Yes. In the summer of 1990, he ends up taking the title role in Richard III at the Public Theater in New York. Once again, this is the thing where it's just like he just keeps bouncing from stage to screen. I think he's mostly done with television at this point. I mean, he still every now and then does like a pop-up in something, but
he has an Oscar now. He's fine.
Exactly. And he has also said, I found a great interview with him where someone was like, so do you ever have to audition anymore? And he's like, I haven't auditioned in 40 years.
Please, Diva.
I don't know if it's 40 exactly. I won an Academy Award in 1989.
That's
How many
right.
years ago was that?
So that would be 35?
I'm sure that
correct?
nobody asked me to audition after
That's
that.
crazy.
I may be wrong.
love that
I
for
may
you.
be wrong. I may be wrong. I don't know.
I mean, do you miss that?
Auditioning?
Yeah.
No.
Also, in the same year, he ends up starring as Bleak Gillum in Spike Lee's Mo Better Blues. Why do I feel like... Yeah, why do I feel like we talked about it? Oh, Spike Lee. Duh,
Spike Lee,
obviously.
yeah.
Go listen to our Spike Lee episode. I love Mo Better Blues. I think it's great. And it's
costumes eating up.
And in 1991, he stars as Demetrius Williams in Mira Nair's Mississippi Masala.
So hot.
Yeah,
so hot.
opposite Sarita Chowdhury, who I have said before on the show is one of the most beautiful humans alive still to this day. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And like them on screen together is like crack an egg on your TV. It'll fry up for you. Like,
yeah, sensual seduction.
Yeah, I know we both have fond recollections of that film. I don't have anything negative to say. I do want to just say one negative thing about 1990s Heart Condition. I don't know.
Didn't watch that, so
okay.
Go on though.
He plays Napoleon Stone, who's an ambulance chaser who dies in a freak accident, and his heart gets put into Bob Hoskins, who not only just hates him in general because he's also been sleeping with Bob Hoskins' ex-girlfriend, but also is a virulent racist and a known virulent racist. And so Bob Hoskins starts seeing dead Denzel Washington and like he's advising him. And it's just this shitty, once again, it's another movie on racial themes, but it's like the it's how many times can you hear Bob Hoskins say the N-word? Like, it's
Right.
just,
I was going to say, like, it's the carbon copy of it all, like, where it's like,
yeah.
it's a very strange thing. I think Americans broadly love the thing of like, racial whoopsie doopsies, and like,
Racial whoopsie doopsies. Yeah.
like, you know, I mean,
correct.
like, there's a reason why people love white chicks, and it's
Yeah.
because like we have this fascination of doing the taboo, I mean, I
Right.
think white chicks works because it's black men
Right.
playing
Well,
white women who, like, you know,
exactly.
like, they have
Like,
power. But
right. I was just gonna say, like, the reasons white chicks work is because reverse racism doesn't exist.
Right.
Because like there's a power dynamic that has white people have power over black people, not
Right.
so
when
like
black people are making fun of white people by like singing Vanessa Carlton, that's not offensive.
right.
But like when it's white
Right.
people who are like, through the magic of like whoopsie doopsies or whatever, I get to say the N-word now. It's
Yeah.
like you know, but
Exactly.
But I think like broadly Americans like kind of having the excuse and being like, listen, I really don't mean it, but like, should we all just like kind of tee hee and laugh at this like thing
Yeah.
we shouldn't be? And it's like fucked up, but it's because our country's fucked up, you know.
He does action thriller Ricochet in 1991, which is just a wild, insane movie. But shout out to Russell Mulcahy, our gay action movie director. Love him, even when he makes shit. And let me tell you, Ricochet is about half shit, but that's okay. John Lithgow, who unfortunately R.I.P. in our memories now. Sorry,
I know.
But yeah, like Ricochet is like, if you want a wild ride, if you want like pure 90s adrenaline, like, but also just real quick, because we're about to hit like a big turning point for his career. I do want to say, I do think it is really interesting that Denzel Washington, obviously he's very handsome, right? And he's got a good body, but it's not jacked Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone.
No.
And he's starring in these kind of action movies that they would normally be in. And I think it's an interesting turn towards our action star, because people complained in the 90s. They were like, suddenly like, oh, our action stars aren't like these buff, you know, like behemoths anymore.
They weren't aspirational anymore. Like the
Right.
80s were like with Rambo and
Right.
like all that stuff. Like that was kind of fantasy.
Right.
Denzel is never really playing fantasy. Like these are like kind of salt of the earth guys who like you could know, and that's probably a big reason why people want to go see the movies. Like go see him. It's like,
yeah,
I know this guy. I know this neighbor. This is, you know, the black guy who was non-threatening type vibes. Like that's really kind of what's going on.
And that's what I think is so fascinating about it, is that turn towards that is like really an interesting thing, especially because like he is a black man, but he does fit in the role in a prejudiced American society into the everyman slot. I was thinking about this during this episode, and like my dad was not a prejudiced guy, but like my dad loved Denzel Washington, and my dad was a white man because I am a white man. And I think it is part of like Denzel Washington is both so talented, but also just like not threatening. Yeah. And so like becomes very palatable for white people.
It's the charisma. I mean, like he just was able to put all audiences at ease. And it's strange because I think his body of work is political. I think he clearly has this mission to tell the Black American story. And yet at the same time, like he is out here doing movies and doing roles where like, it's like the Dolly Parton effect, taking the politics out to be like, I know people from everywhere and I respect everybody and I want everyone to respect me. That's the vibe. And so he's able to, you know, like I pulled that Dolly Parton thing out of my ass, and it's kind of like really profound actually, because
it is.
Because she, in the same way she says she's not political, but like
her entire career is political.
Like existing is political, you know, like your presentation of who you are is political. And he, as this black man who is like young, and like he doesn't have to flash that smile if he doesn't want to.
No,
we know in his movies he can play evil and villainous and be scary as fuck. But like he, you know, has that charisma and charm, and it just like works on everybody. And it's interesting in this turn we're about to take where it's like he is decided to be political.
But yeah, it hit me midway through doing this. I was like, oh yeah, my dad went to the theater my dad's the one who took me to see Virtuosity. My dad went to the theater to see the Pelican Brief. I remember him going to the theater to see Crimson Tide. He saw Fallen in the theater. It's just one of those things where I didn't put it together ever, but I was like, oh yeah, my dad was like a big Denzel Washington fan and an interesting sort of way.
Every dad loves Denzel. Okay.
Oh my God, make that t-shirt, Louis, make that t-shirt. Every dad loves Denzel. But yes, so 1992 comes around and like you said, he makes a big political decision, which he stars in Spike Lee's Malcolm X. Yeah. Obviously he teamed with Spike Lee before. He knew how he worked. He trusted him. And, he ends up getting another Academy Award nomination. How he did not win for Best Actor in that year.
I'm about to fucking see who fucking won that year.
Yeah. All this to say, Malcolm X is quite the epic. We talked a lot about it in our Spike Lee episode, but it is literally a 3-hour long movie. And what's great about it is it very much, this is probably the only time it's ever going to be compared to The Mighty Quinn, but like The Mighty Quinn, it is a multi sort of genre movie as well, because it is a biopic, but it is also a musical at points, and it is a crime drama, and it is a political thriller, and it's all these things, and only the way that Spike Lee could present it. It has all this energy. It never feels 3 hours long, even though there is an intermission in it. I love Malcolm X. I think it's really fantastic.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot in the Spike Lee episode. All of his movies are so powerful and good, but this one feels so vital and integral to the American story. It feels like, everyone knows who Martin Luther King Jr. is and like his story or whatever. And like this feels like peeling back, and it's an education. It's like what you were saying about No Other Land, it's informative, it's life-changing, all those things.
And actually, something just building off a thought process you mentioned earlier, what's interesting is a lot of people complain about Spike Lee for going the extra for sort of the not necessarily beating the audience over the head, but pushing things further than a lot of other directors would. There's not a lot of subtlety in Spike Lee's work, and I don't think that's a negative thing. But it's interesting that people have those complaints when it comes to things like the fact that Nelson Mandela is in the end of Malcolm X, being a teacher in South Africa and educating children about Malcolm X and his ideals, versus having white people say the N-word to prove to the audience that oh, this is a bad thing. And it's interesting that when Spike Lee does it, when it's about something that's challenging, it becomes threatening to an audience. But when white people do it, it's okay.
I think it's a very good point to bring up that in the same way that these movies that are mostly made by white people, where we're having to educate the white audience in a very kind of non-threatening, there's a good white person who did the right thing.
Yeah.
That we were talking about earlier, in Glory. In Spike Lee's version of that, it's I'm not going to be subtle at all. I am educating you guys. I need you to know the truth about my people and our story. And it's it feels more purposeful, and it feels more he's a historian. I think Spike is a historian. I think Denzel's a historian. Al Pacino won for Scent of a Woman.
Oh, boo. Fucking boo. Boo.
Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood was also down here for Unforgiven. Robert Downey Jr. for Chaplin, LOL. And Stephen Ray for The Crying Game.
Jesus! I like Stephen Ray. I saw Stephen Ray on the stage when I was in Ireland. But The Crying Game.
This all seems like a walk for Denzel. Honestly, I don't understand. But
yeah. Oh boy. Yes. More things said about Malcolm X, the better. I do often think of that scene where he's about to go speak somewhere, and this young white girl comes up to him on a college campus and is like, "What can a non-prejudiced white person like me do to help further your cause?" And he just goes, "Nothing," and walks by her.
Say that. Get to the back. Get to the back.
After 1990, Malcolm X is the only movie in 1992 that he does that comes out. But 1993, also a big year. He does Philadelphia, The Pelican Brief, and Much Ado About Nothing. Pelican Brief, maybe the least of these three, but huge because it's a John Grisham adaptation,
and Julia Roberts.
There's obviously chemistry between them, but there is never a kiss, which says something about 1993's audiences. I also vaguely remember there being like some like kerfuffle over Denzel Washington being cast in that role because he's a white man in the book. But don't quote me on that. I have not read the book, so but I vaguely remember there being something. However, Kenneth Branagh's Much Ado About Nothing.
Gorgeous.
The right noise.
He's the straight man in this.
Yeah.
In this comedy, this farce, but he also is kind of the one who has the ingenious plot to make his good friend and his cousin or whatever the fuck fall in love, Emma Thompson and Kenneth Branagh, and so it's by his design. He's playing Cupid. He says, let us play Cupid and have these two people who are ornery fall in love.
If we can do this, Cupid is no longer an archer. His glory shall be ours. For we are the only love gods. Go with me. I will tell you my drift.
Beautiful movie. Like, hey, Nani, hey, Nani, hey, Nani.
And just to say, like, his charm really shines through in playing this role,
but
which is,
it's showcasing his mastery of the bard. Like, when was the last fucking time you saw a action cop hero guy doing Shakespeare and doing it well? Like, God bless Keanu. Like,
I know
struggle bus for her, but like literally Denzel has his own fucking John Wick series in The Equalizer, and he's doing this. Okay, like, get you a girl who could do both.
I didn't realize that this like is also like a kind of a rogues gallery of previous subjects as well, because you have Keanu and you have Michael Keaton. And Michael Keaton. I will say this, like, for as much of a blowhard as I think Kenneth Branagh kind of is, and much of a showboater as he is, he does have a really smart, because you wouldn't think to cast Michael Keaton in a Shakespeare adaptation, but he's very good. And I don't think you would think, I know Denzel had been doing Shakespeare on stage, but because of what you just said, like in a typical like action movie star thinking way, you wouldn't think to cast him, let alone in one of the comedies. Like, it makes sense for the Coen brothers to be like, yes, he can play Macbeth. But it's a much harder to be like, oh, Denzel should come play in the sandbox with us while we're just sort of goofing and gallanting around.
But it makes sense because he's playing like the general, the lead of this like band of men who have come back from war. Beautiful movie, great music. I did want to say, we've talked about Philadelphia before, and I remember you talking to me about the scene where he's listening to the opera. I had never seen it until for this episode. And I was thinking about like how, again, like this is a part of the story of like telling the American story. I think for me, it lines up into that. I also didn't realize like it's not really a sob story of like a guy who accidentally got AIDS or whatever. Like, it's just like plainly like, this is a gay man. And yeah, he was fucking at the porn house. And I thought that was really radical. Like, the movie makes no like, well, actually, he loves God. So, like, it's just like, he's like, yes, I went to the porn house and fucked and did have a boyfriend and whatever. I got AIDS. Like, and they still deserve rights and respect.
And this is the movie that does for gay people what like they're attempting to do with Glory. But for us, it's like being like, yeah, these are human beings, because Denzel's character, who is a lawyer, who is essentially Tom Hanks is also a lawyer, but Tom Hanks hires Denzel to represent him in a case in which he's suing his former employers for wrongful termination because they terminated him because he has AIDS. And this is not just a movie about a man dying of AIDS. It's about a movie about a human who's demanding to be treated like a human. And Denzel starts off incredibly bigoted, like literally to the point
he says,
where
I'm bigoted. He says, I'm bigoted. I don't like those homosexuals. He's telling his wife, who just told him, my aunt is a lesbian. The guy who's fixing our cabinets is gay. Well, we know a lot of gay people.
And he says something like, don't bring her around the kids.
All right, well, hey, I admit it, okay? I'm prejudiced. I don't like homosexuals. There, you got me.
All right.
I mean, the way these guys do that thing, don't they get confused? No, I don't know. Is that yours? Is that mine? You know, I want to be in the bed with anybody who's stronger than me or that has more hair on their chest than I do. Now, you can call me old-fashioned, you can call me conservative. Just call me a man. Besides, I think you have to be a man to understand how really disgusting that whole idea is anyway.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well. Little caveman at the house.
Damn Skippy. There you go, baby. Stay away from your Aunt Teresa, too. You hear me?
Joe, don't say that to her.
Think about it. Those guys pumping up together, trying to be macho and faggot at the same time. You know, I can't stand that shit.
He's learning that, like, oh, I need to stop. I mean, after the first time Tom Hanks goes and meets with him to ask him to represent him, he goes to a doctor to make sure that he has not been exposed to AIDS.
Yeah.
And there's things in Philadelphia that have not aged well, I will say. But I think overall, it's a gorgeous, beautiful movie. It makes me cry every time.
Yeah. The amount of like character actresses that gay men love, Ann Dowd, Anna Devere Smith. Like, I was thinking a lot of the same way. Like, this is a movie about a homophobe, and like, they don't soften on him. Like, they don't this is. And I was thinking like that's probably like a good 3/4 of the, like what guys were like, where it's just like, I don't want to be around that. I don't want, not whatever. And they really like, I mean, there's a guy who sees him on TV and like starts hitting on him and he freaks out.
He freaks out. And the guy's literally like, I could kick your ass.
Yeah. Like, do I look at, I mean, this movie in the same way, like where in Glory and in other movies where it's like, yes, teaching white people about black people. This movie is very much like teaching straights about gay people. Is it perfect? No. But I think it's beautiful and I'm glad it exists.
And after agreed on all of that. His next movies don't come out until 95. And like I'm actually just gonna consolidate the rest of the 90s. From 95 to 2000, he does Crimson Tide, Virtuosity, Devil in a Blue Dress, Courage Under Fire, Preacher's Wife, Fallen, He Got Game, The Siege and the Bone Collector, and The Hurricane. I had never actually seen Crimson Tide, even though my dad really liked that movie. Another Gene Hackman, Crimson Tide's so good. And like, in terms of like solid action thriller, really good. Tony Scott really knew how to put together a movie. Sometimes it's much crazier down the line, but back in 95, he was really working on all cylinders. I will say, Tarantino script doctored that movie, and you can tell because there's like that weird like exchange about the Silver Surfer and Mobius and whatnot. And I guess Tarantino showed up on set at one point, and Denzel cornered him about the use of the N-word in Pulp Fiction and why he thought it was okay.
Ooh.
And I guess they've since like they're cool now or whatever. But I was like, damn, I would not want to be on the receiving end of Denzel.
Get his fucking ass. Get his fucking ass. Like, oh, your art depends on the N-word? Cool.
Yeah, exactly. What's up with that? Virtuosity, we touched a little bit on. It's an action movie. It was Russell Crowe's big break in Hollywood.
Him and Russell Crowe love making movies together.
They do. And honestly, they're good. They're good chemistry together. But Virtuosity is literally about an evil computer program played by Russell Crowe who gets into the real world, and he has the mind of 100 serial killers, and he's
like an animaniac.
Yeah. And he's going for revenge against Denzel Washington, who is a former policeman who is accused of murdering a serial killer who killed his wife and daughter. And it's fun and fine. I don't want to touch on all of these, but I do just want to say Devil in a Blue Dress, which we talked about for our Don Cheadle episode.
Yes.
I love Devil in a Blue Dress. There should be 7 more movies about this character. The Easy Rollins that he plays is a book character, and there's a lot more books, I believe. And there literally is no reason for there not to have been other than he's black. Like, I think if this were a white man, we would have had like 20 Easy Rawlings movies by now.
And they would all been played by different guys and no one would care.
Yeah, exactly. Courage Under Fire, we talked about in our Meg Ryan episode. Like, literally, these are all people. He Got Game is in our Spike Lee episode. But in 2000, he's in Remember the Titans, which we talked about in a Ryan Gosling episode. And this, I feel like this is the corner. Like, he is moving, even though he's still going to be doing some action movies, obviously, like you mentioned, The Equalizer. Like, this Remember the Titans is like dad mode Denzel.
Well, like, it's like also he can make movies for families and kids, you know, like it's okay. He does dramas, he does Shakespeare, he does action. Remember the Titans is a drama, but like it's a Disney produced, like, you know, happy go lucky, you know, I mean, again, like,
some tragic stuff happens, but yes, really, like,
but I mean, yes, tragic stuff happens, but in the end, it's like racial harmony, kind of, you know, XYZ. Yes, I think. I mean, we talked about this. I think it's great. I think fucking little Hayden Panettiere is great. Like, it's
and also his daughter. Like, Hayden Panettiere and his daughter have the like. Yeah, it's a cute movie. I don't love it, but like I watched it a lot. But I think I said that in the Ryan Gosling episode when I was a teen. I was like, why do I like this movie so much? Turns out I just like men. But after that, like, he goes from Remember the Titans to 2001's Training Day,
which are you know, like companion movies, really.
Oh,
like,
yeah, really,
just a double header for all the whole family.
Training Day, very famous film. He plays a corrupt cop who's bringing Ethan Hawke into his like unit, but also his like criminal organization,
scheming and scamming.
Yeah, it's I believe it's his first collaboration with Anton Fuqua.
I think so. That sounds right.
And, you know, it ends up getting Denzel an Academy Award.
Yeah, his second Oscar, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets him his second Oscar, but his first Oscar for lead role.
Mm-hmm.
And
was that not the same night that Halle Berry won? Like, that was the night? Yeah, okay, so yeah.
Yeah, he becomes the second African-American actor to win after Sidney Poitier. So,
yes.
And
I think
and
Ethan Hawke
also,
is weirdly good in this.
Yeah. Oh, I think it is. Here's my thing. I saw it when I was a kid, didn't like it. I rewatched it for this, still didn't really like it. I think it's a dumb movie with some really great performances in it. And I think both Ethan Hawke and Denzel are like firing on all cylinders. And I
Snoop
totally
Dogg and Dr. Dre.
Yeah, exactly.
Terry
Crews. I totally understand why he gets an Academy Award for this, because it is such a wild sort of over the top. I mean, the King Kong ain't got shit on me line is an ad lib. Like, it's just this kind of like crazy lived in. I will say, when I watch this I'm like, man, this deserves best acting over Malcolm X. No. But that's the Academy Award voters.
I mean, Jesus, what more you want?
I want the justice. Right?
Is that not justice?
That's street justice.
What's wrong with street justice?
Oh, just let the animals wipe themselves out.
God willing. Fuck them. Everybody who looks like them. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The good guys, they die first, right? Those school kids and moms, family men, they don't want to catch the stray bullets in the noodle. To protect the sheep, you got to catch the wolf. And it takes a wolf to catch a wolf. You understand?
Yeah, I think like this movie, he says, you know, when he got the script, the cop was like more just like a straight cop who was like happened to be corrupt, and that he was the one who was like, no, like gangster life, and we're gonna do some research and like really, you know, fully immerse ourselves in this Los Angeles gang life, you know, motif. Yeah, I didn't enjoy watching this. I don't think this is an enjoyable movie. It's like very fucking tense and like, like just he makes a lot of movies that are very intense that like stress me the fuck out. But like that's kind of like his vibe sometimes, where he's really intense and he's gonna like lord over the movie. Like, is he gonna fucking kill the guy? Is he not? Is he gonna like, you know, make it out or not? This is also like the beginning of a trend of fucking Eva Mendes playing hapless fucking like sex pieces, and I'm like, oh, Eva Mendes, what'd they do to you, girl?
I know.
But yeah, I don't love the movie, but I think Ethan and him really are really strong.
the next year he does John Q and Antoine Fisher. John Q is with Nick Cassavetes prior to The Notebook, like right before The Notebook. I don't think John Q's a good movie. I think that John Q's message is good. I think it's like, to me, this was too much like in your like literal characters stating theses of the film over and over again.
Luigi Mangione made this film. Okay.
Yes, yeah. It's literally a movie about a man who takes an ER hostage because his son can't get a heart transplant. And it's literally characters being like, the American healthcare system is really fucked up, guys. Don't you know this? And like, and I think that's important, but also like, I don't know, watch a documentary. And then he makes his directorial debut with Antoine Fisher. He also takes the minor role of Dr. Jerome Davenport in it. I think this is like a really personal project to him. I had never seen Antoine Fisher before, which is so funny because somebody commented on my Letterboxd review like that it was a high school staple for them, and I was like, oh, I am too old to have seen this in high school. But it's a story about a boy who is in the Navy. He has a lot of rage issues. He starts going to see a psychiatrist, and the story of his life unravels. It's a true story. It was written by the real Antoine Fisher. Wow. And the only other thing I want to say in it, like, I think it's very powerful and effective filmmaking. I think, like, obviously the subject matter could probably be kind of a little cliche because it's like about a seemingly unremarkable person and yet is about sort of an every person story. But yeah, 2003, he does Out of Time, which, yeah.
Dean Cain.
I know. 2004, Man on Fire and The Manchurian Candidate, reteaming with Tony Scott for Man on Fire. This movie's a seizure. But he does meet Dakota Fanning in it. He remains really good friend. Like, it's funny, we read an interview, but I know we both read in interviews, especially that Esquire interview. He says he doesn't really talk to many actors. Mm-hmm. It's just a job. Like, but I think he's held a really soft spot for Dakota Fanning because she is like, as he said, like when he met her, he's like, oh, this is a tiny adult. Like, this is like she was like really into her craft, and he like really respected that.
Amazing.
Which is why like she comes back for the Equalizer 3 and whatnot.
The first scene we did together, there's a scene when she takes me up to the room where I'm going to stay, and she sits up on the bed, and we're doing the scene, and only twice in my career have I found myself sitting and just watching the other actor and not even being in the scene. The first time was with Gene Hackman. And the second time was with her. I was like, this woman's got to be 46 years old. She can't be 10 years old.
2007, American Gangster, The Great Debaters. Second directorial effort, The Great Debaters. I think his direction's very solid. I think it does. This one suffers a little more from the saccharineness of the whole, like, but I like it. I'm not trying to be like, but I do think it's one of those like feel good. Everybody sort of says what they.
Right. Well, I'm thinking like we have to remember Denzel is the age he is.
Right.
And a part of me wonders, like, he does just believe in the like, God is good. We are all, if you're right, you're right. And like, it is as simple as, I'm telling you that this is the way it is. Like, I don't think his politics are probably super progressive. Like, I think it's just like, the idea is, are you good or are you bad? Is it yes or is it no? Like, it's just that, and that's the way it is. And I'm going to tell you the way it is. And you either respect me or you don't, and get out of my way if you don't. And like, I think that's a lot of his movies and these messages where it's like, it's not complicated. We're not going to get too deep in this, or we are going to get deep, but it's not complicated. You either are on for the ride or you're not. I fucking was sobbing at the end of The Great Debaters. I'd never seen it before.
I never had either.
But I think it's like, it strangely or sadly, like, just really stands the test of time, where it's like this black kid being like, you fucking should thank me for being disobedient and not being violent, because I should be violent. Like, the things that you've put me through, like, bitch, you say thank you that all I'm doing is like making a little bit of a ruckus and not fucking asking for revenge. I like Great Debaters a lot.
And also American Gangster, where he also gets another Academy Award nomination, I believe. Reteaming with Ridley Scott, reteaming with Russell Crowe. Actually, I think this is the first teaming with Ridley. Sorry, because Tony, he'd worked with his brother quite a bit. he plays a gangster, and this is very much sort of
He's
in line.
American.
Yeah, sort of in line with what you were saying though, where like he's a really bad guy in this movie, but also like because he's Denzel Washington, because he really like lets you feel for him, you do question like what is the system that causes him to, you know, because the thing that leads to his rise is the fact that he's able to game the system because it's a racist fucking system. I think it's an interesting movie, but it's also 3 hours long. So
yeah, I watched it and I was like, oh, this is definitely a movie for dads, and like it's good. Yeah. It's you know, it's special. No, but it's good.
I want to say, and I'm not trying to be too mean, but I want to say everything after 2007 until 2016 is a very weird, you know, we talk about career dips all the time. He does 2009's Taking Pelham 123, which is a remake, also Tony Scott, Book of Eli in 2010, Unstoppable in 2010, Safe House 2012, Flight 2012, Two Guns in 2013, The First Equalizer in 2014, Magnificent Seven in 2016. I think the big swing back comes from 2016's Fences. The August Wilson estate contacts Denzel Washington, specifically August Wilson's wife. August Wilson passes away. He's an American playwright. As Denzel Washington has said, you know, he's up there with like Eugene O'Neill, and he is dies kind of young. He dies at the age of 60. So, but he wrote 10 plays. It's called The Century Cycle. 9 of them take place in Pittsburgh. They're very important pieces of theater. In 2010, Denzel is on Broadway with Viola Davis in Fences, wins the Tony Award. And so when August Wilson dies, his widow contacts Denzel and is like, we would like to entrust you with ensuring that these August Wilson plays get turned into movies.
I mean, it's a gift for me. I mean, I'm like, wow. At this age of mastery or whatever you want to call it, they said, would you take care of August? And I said, I'm just a man for the job because I'm in the service business. You know, I'm done. I've done well. I'm okay, and life has been good. And to be asked to take care of his work is an honor. It's a responsibility, but sure. Yeah.
The initial deal is set up at HBO with the promise that he will direct and star in an adaptation of Fences that will go theatrical. And I don't know exactly what happened with the deal, like where the rights happen. The deal eventually gets shifted to Netflix, which is why the next 2 August Wilson adaptations, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and The Piano Lessons, of which he is only a producer on those, they come out through Netflix.
Fences is incredible.
Yeah, we talked a lot about it in our Viola Davis episode. She's truly the powerhouse. She has talked about how he like I said, he also directs it, how he made her realize things about the play that she couldn't even get from doing it on Broadway with him. And yeah, I think it's a really, really powerful, complicated. I can't imagine trying to direct yourself doing that because he is kind of he's not a rotten man, but he's not a nice man. He's a very, he's
a man of stone. He's a man of like, you know, who's been beaten down. I mean, it's crazy because like August Wilson's, he's a master, and imagine like, it is just, thank God the stars aligned for us to consume this masterful work done by 2 masters of the craft. And yeah, I remember watching it by myself in the theater and just being like, fuck. He's so generous. I think we should talk about how he's such a very generous scene partner. Not only in this, but I think this exemplifies how generous he is to give Viola the space to really fucking turn it all the way up and just go up in flames. Yeah, it's a masterwork.
We talking about you going off and laying up with another woman and bringing it home to me. That's what we talking about. We're not talking about no baseball.
You're not listening to me. I'm trying to explain it to you the best way I know how. It's not easy for me to admit that I've been standing in the same place for 18 years.
Well, I've been standing with you. I've been right here with you, Troy. I got a life, too. I gave 18 years of my life to stand in the same spot as you. Don't you think I ever wanted other things?
In 2017, he does Roman J. Israel Esquire. We ended up talking about this movie in our Colin Farrell episodes. Once again, he's just hitting all the... I fucking love this movie so much. I truly love this movie a lot. Your face says that maybe you do not.
I don't love the movie. I think it's complicated and weird. Like, it's a strange little movie. I watched it. I didn't watch it for Colin, but I watched it for this. And I was like, that was so strange. And like, unlike... it's the structure of it is not like many movies. I thought like there's a lot of like kind of dips and action and rising in like weird places. And not saying it's like bad or wrong, but it's
I
just
think
like,
you're right.
It's very kind of bizarrely written and put together, and kind of like brutal but I guess like the whole... I was like, Roman is an unlikable character, so it's hard to kind of get in. But I was like, but this is the point.
But I don't know. I just I'm really impressed. But I've become like a little bit of a mark for him because I also liked Velvet Buzzsaw and nobody else did. So like,
he's got your number, babe.
Yeah, he really does. Equalizer 2, 2018, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 2020, in which he was a producer only. The Little Things in 2021, Tragedy Macbeth in 2021, and he directs and produces a film called A Journal for Jordan in 2021. I think that's like literally one of the only things I didn't watch because I knew that he wasn't in it. And I was like, I've seen him direct. I know. I hated The Little Things. I have not watched it since it came out.
I did not watch that movie, but somehow I still feel this pull to give it my 1 star. I don't know why.
And Tragedy Macbeth, he plays Lord Macbeth. It's a great performance. It's a wackadoodle, like very like drier sort of esque film,
black and white,
like really intense close-ups and very expressionistic and whatnot. And it's him and our good Judy gal,
Frances
McDormand. But because it's on Apple TV, no one will ever see it. So sorry.
Prithee, peace. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none.
What beast was then made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you are a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you had done to this.
If we should fail.
We fail. But screw your courage to the sticking place and we'll not fail.
Equalizer 3, 2023. I did not realize Equalizer 3 was like literally 2 years ago.
And did you fucking hear in his interview? He's like, people seem to like Equalizer, so I'm going to do the 4th and 5th one.
Yeah. My favorite thing in that interview was actually, he was like, they asked me to do another Equalizer. I guess we're doing 4 and 5. It's almost like he's being tricked into it. Like
Queen Latifah is equalizing on CBS every week.
Yeah, he produces The Piano Lesson in last year, which also was a whole family affair. Like one of his sons directed it. His other son starred in it. His other daughter produced it. And then the reason that his other daughter couldn't be in it is she was literally in a play in England at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then Gladiator 2, which just came out last year. It's so funny. I saw these interviews where people were like, were you sad when you didn't get nominated for Gladiator 2? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, we made a good movie. Yeah, I understand that. But like, do I get sad when I don't get nominated? Like,
yeah, he's very much like, does he also say this thing where it's like, which movies do I do for money? He's like, I do them all for money. I need money.
Yeah, exactly. Though I do like that he's like, I am choosy.
I've taken every job for money. There's no job I've taken where I went, you know what? You guys just keep the money. I'm just so happy to be. I'm just so glad to be an actor. I don't even want the money. My kids, we'll work it out. We'll homeschool them. Especially Virtuosity. I had some bills to pay. Virtuosity definitely had something to do with tuition.
We'll talk more about what's coming up next when we get to our fast forward, but there's been a lot of talk about, what's the next in the Century Cycle plays for movies. what Marvel director he's been talking to about possibly. But we'll get to that in the fast forward real quick in terms of his personal life. I did mention that in 1983, I did mention that he met his wife, Pauletta Pearson, on the set of a movie. And on June 25th of 1983, they were married. And they have 4 children together, John David Washington, Katia, Olivia, and Malcolm. I didn't realize Olivia and Malcolm were twins. Goodness. Twins and twins. Like I said, they're all in the business. He has been with his wife for 40 years. Yep. In 1995, they renewed their wedding vows in South Africa with Desmond Tutu officiating.
Casual.
So, yeah. We have talked... I don't want to get into this too much. I'm not religious, and so I do not feel qualified to talk about this, but he is very religious. He's a Pentecostal evangelical Christian, and a member of the West Angeles Church of God in Christ, which is in Los Angeles. He's considered becoming a preacher. He has been baptized. He's beginning to take classes to be a preacher. In 1995, he donated $2.5 million to help build the New Angeles Church of God in Christ facility in Los Angeles. He was only baptized literally this past December.
Right.
And now he's thinking about becoming a preacher. Part of this goes back to that prophecy I mentioned up at top. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. I
was thinking about, like, you know, he talks about that a lot about it in the New York Times article. And it kind of, I think, goes back to, like, you know, thinking about his career in movies and all the kind of like family vibes and good triumphing over evil, and like how it is black and white. You know, you are either right with God or you are not right with God. You are, and I think that's part of that everyman quality that people love about him and that are attracted to him. Like, I think this religious part is a part of that. And I will say, you know, like, obviously you and I are not like rah religious people at all, but I do in some senses feel like if you were going to be a person who's practicing faith, like, I think at least like he seems to be doing it in a very honest and good way where he's not hypocritical. He's not out here like Chris Pratt being an asshole about it, you know?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
And so I want to believe, and I know, you know, my mom is very Catholic, but like she loves everybody, you know, and she's like the least bigoted person I know. But like, and so we have to have people who are religious and who are fucking good people and okay. And that, I think if Denzel can be that beacon, like for an example of what a good Christian looks like God bless and go on, my wayward son. Like,
yeah, go off, Queen.
Yes. Like, he's not out here like crazy, you know, MAGA religious people who are fucking, you know, actively participating in bringing people down, you know?
Right.
I imagine, and I don't know this, but he's like, if you yourself are right with God and you feel you have good in your heart, like, you, like, the whole idea with Christianity is like God will save you if you like are good. Just be good.
Right.
And I think that reflects back to his movies where we're saying like, oh, they don't really like kind of, there's no subtlety here, or there's no kind of like, it's like, well, because in the end it's like, are you good or are you bad? He, in that article we were talking off mic before, how he says like, sometimes I just don't think too hard about it. Sometimes you got to enjoy swing in the water. Just let it wash over you. And like, that's a very religious thing. Let God's love wash over you, XYZ. Like, and I think kind of his vibe is like, listen, let's have fun while we're here. Let's be good people. Let's respect each other. I don't want to fight. You want to fight me for what? Go somewhere else. Like, I want to preach to my people, have love in my life, have my family. He's like, I don't want to go to parties. I don't want to like hang out. He's like, I will say hi to Tom Hanks when I see him and then go along my merry way.
Yeah.
So,
and he did mention in that article, like, I do want to mention this before I get to the charities. Like, he's been an alcoholic in the past, and he's been sober for the last 10 years. Since he turned 60, he has not had a drop to drink since. But he says there's like a good 15 years where he was never drunk on set. He was never drunk while doing a job. But there's movies that he just really doesn't even remember making because he would just drink all day.
Yeah.
And that was a real problem. But I just mentioned that because like I think he oftentimes gives off. We have a tendency to idealize our celebrities, and he oftentimes gives off this like very charming, like I don't have any problems, and he's like, no, nobody doesn't have any problems.
It's the Tom Hanks thing where he's like, everyone thinks on this like nice guy dad all the time. He's like, I'm not that all the time.
Right. Real quick, charities. Just once again, I just really like doing charities because I really think it's important to see these people with money that are actually giving back and doing positive things for the world instead of just expecting tax breaks. And Washington has been a national spokesman for the Boys and Girls Club of America since 1993. He's appeared in public service announcements. He was a board member in 1995. In 2006, for the organization's 100th anniversary, he helped put together with Daniel Paisner a book that underscores the lesson, quote, if you want to change the world, start by changing the life of a child. In mid-2004, he visited the Brooke Army Medical Center in Fort Sam, Houston, where he participated in a Purple Heart ceremony, presenting medals to 3 Army soldiers recovering from wounds they received while stationed in Iraq. He has made donations to the Fisher House Foundation. He gave $1 million to Nelson Mandela's Children Fund in 1995 and $1 million to Wiley College to resuscitate the college's debate team.
The great debaters.
Exactly. In 1991, he was awarded an honorary doctorate from his alma mater, Fordham University. He was also supposed to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2022. That was delayed, and he ended up receiving it this year. We've already talked about his awards. Very awarded. He has Golden Globes. He has a Tony. He has 2 Academy Awards. He's been nominated like 10 times at the Academy Awards. He really needs to read a fucking book so he can get a Grammy. And he really needs to, like, I don't know, put one of the August Wilson plays back on HBO and get that Emmy.
Get an Emmy.
And that he can EGOT. But yeah, that I guess wraps up the very complicated story of Denzel Washington. Like I said, it's a really, I know that was kind of a marathon to get through, but like he's a complicated figure and he's made a bunch of complicated movies. And I think he's had such an interesting variety in his career, but as well as his life as well. And like you said, Louis, he really is the everyman. And if I had to like pick a symbol of America in terms of like entertainment, like I think Denzel Washington's a good example of that.
Not even just a good example, but like the prime example.
Yeah. All right. Time to do the bad part. So sorry, Denzel, if you're listening to this. But we are now going to do our 1-star reviews. Louis, hit me with your 1-star review.
My 1-star review, and I, even though, like I was saying, I bet you if I watched The Simple Things, I would fucking hate it.
The little things?
Is it The Little Things?
Yeah.
The Simple Things?
Simple,
Little Things. Whatever the fuck.
The Simple Life with...
Right. I don't know how you get 3 Oscar winners in one movie and like... It's
The Little Things, yes.
The Little Things, yeah. But my pick actually is 2003's Out of Time. I don't know what this movie, like, there is a difference between like a movie that is like going to play fast and loose and be kooky booky like Virtuosity, because that's not reality. Like, that's just not reality. Out of Time is suggesting we are in real life, we are in the real world, and like and it's just it thinks it's doing more than it actually is. Out of Time, he plays Matt Lee Whitlock. He's like a chief of police. He's like, and also what I hate about this movie is like it has this moral thing going on with it, like that I really, really don't like, because it starts off with Sanaa Lathan. She like calls the chief of police and is like, uh-oh, someone's here, better help. And I smell the stunt from a mile away. And sure enough, they're just doing a little like cosplay, sheriff better help me, and we're fucking, but that is not his wife. That is Dean Cain's wife. And they're having an affair.
Poor girl.
I know. Truly. And like the vibe is that he's like a a football player who got hurt and now is like an asshole, I guess. And Denzel Washington, his ex-wife is Ava Mendes, who, I don't know, is a tough woman who can't be tamed, and that caused problems. Um, which is basically all that happens. Like I would say spoiler alert, but like this movie's so stupid it doesn't matter. Like basically Sanaa Lathan's character and Dean Cain's character kind of throw Denzel for a loop. She kind of seduces him, makes him think she has cancer, makes him steal money from the police station.
Yes, yeah.
To give to her for cancer treatment that is not real. They disappear, and he's like, "Oh fuck!" Eva Mendes comes down to like,
and also to make him look even more guilty. She fakes her death and has him be signed over as the beneficiary of her life insurance policy, which like is insane.
Right? Very like it's very twisty turny, but like in a stupid way.
Yeah.
And there's a part that I especially thought was so fun. This movie plays fast and loose with like technology. They love showing us how beepers work and like tracking. Also, he has to change these phone records because he called the time.
Oh yes.
And so he decided Photoshop was not a thing, but like the way he scanned that in and was able to like edit
in like Microsoft Paint. Take out his phone number.
He is Microsoft Painting and unplugging fax machines or whatever the fuck, and he's like, "Oh, here it is," and they're like, "Wow."
Yeah, I can't read this.
Yeah, it's the tone.
Have her refax.
No, it's okay.
No,
it's
have her refax it. I can't.
It's okay. I can read it. It's okay.
No, fax it
it's
again.
Okay. It's okay. That says Barry Thomas, a friend of Chris's from high school. I know him.
It's a very overly complicated film. He goes to try and save the day. It's, murder kind of across this Florida town or whatever. What I don't like is that, like, in the end, both Dean Cain and Sanaa Lathan die. And in the end, he, like, gets back with Ava Mendes because, of course, that's, like, his true wife. And the woman he's fucking, Sanaa, who, I mean, these are both damaged people. And, like, can they not just like kind of commiserate and have this? Like, you got to fucking kill her and like,
and because in the end it turns out she's the real mastermind. That it wasn't even like Dean Cain, like she's the real baddie. But
she's like, oh, he made me do it, and like he was gonna find out about us,
right?
Whatever.
But I got that like that was.
I mean, I was like,
yeah.
I didn't believe that.
Yeah. But the thing I will say too, that in letting him get away with it and by giving him the happy ending. Also, his character learns nothing because his character did some really stupid things to begin with and then does actually commit a series of crimes in order to cover up his lack of guilt. I know that he's the most obvious answer because he's being set up, but like he didn't do it. So.
Right. I think also, Denzel, like Virtuosity is a very good example of like he is very good in that movie that is very stupid. Like he's actually bringing it and it makes sense. In this movie, I don't even think he can like lift it up. Like this movie never gets off the ground. And so I don't think like his performance is particularly good. I really did enjoy this movie. I'm interested to see what your 1-star review is because I have like maybe one or two others where I was like eking towards the bottom. But what do you got, Gavin?
I do want to say real quick before we move into mine. I really respect Carl Franklin. He is a Black filmmaker who started in a time when it was harder for Black people to get movies made. But on the reverse of that, the other thing about Out of Time is that it looks like a Cinemax movie. Like it looks like it's going to break out into like softcore sex scenes at any moment throughout most of it. And so anywho, I had an initial 1-star review. And then we barely talked about it. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I move on to something that really deserves my ire? But my initial one was 1988's For Queen and Country, just because Denzel Washington cannot do a British accent. I'm so sorry. So sorry, sweetie. he tried so hard, and it doesn't work. And I even like went in and saw some contemporary reviews from when it came out, and people were like, his accent is so accurate. And I'm like, what, were you high? What is happening?
Well, the army was supposed to take care of its old soldiers.
It's good enough for a flash bastard like you, Cole. It's good enough for me.
I don't live here no more.
Where'd you move to then? Knightsbridge?
Nah. Surrey Docks.
Well, I don't believe it.
I think my real 1-star review has to be just based on is The Book of Eli. The Book of Eli is a 2010 post-apocalyptic neo-western. It's a movie about Denzel Washington, who is wandering through the wasteland with a machete on his back. He's wearing dark sunglasses, and he's going to make everyone who gets in his way pay.
Sure.
He stops in a town, I think, to like refill... recharge battery for his iPod, which, by the way, I'll get to it actually, because he stops in this town. This town is run by evil Gary Oldman, a guy named Bill Carnegie, who is looking for a book, a specific book that he believes will help him control people. While Denzel Washington's in town, he sort of like takes him in, wines and dines him, and sends his daughter, played by Mila Kunis, to go spy on him. And when she spies on him before they have their dinner, he prays. And she then goes to pray the next morning before they have their breakfast. And Gary Oldman goes, "Oh, this man has the book that I want. It's the Bible."
Okay.
Yeah. So what then happens after that is like a cat and mouse between Eli, who you find out is going west because he heard the literal you find this 2/3 of the way through the movie. He heard the actual voice of God, which I think is something that should be presented to you in the first 15 minutes of the movie, to tell him to go west because he needs to deliver this book. And Gary Oldman gets him, captures him. I'm going to spoil this whole thing for you because it's so dumb. Leaves him for dead. Mila Kunis escapes from Gary Oldman. She can't get the book back, but he's like, I'm still going west. I'm still determined to go west, even though I'm dying from this bullet wound. They get out west to a printing press built in Alcatraz by Malcolm McDowell, where he is printing out all these books. And he sits down with Malcolm McDowell and he's like, I need you to record everything I'm going to say. And he has memorized the Bible. Oh, sure. Also, he takes off his glasses and you realize he's blind.
Sure.
So Gary Oldman gets that Bible. He opens it up and it's all in Braille. Oh, no.
Not the Braille Bible.
Yeah. And so Denzel Washington dies after having just given the entire King James Bible to Malcolm McDowell. And the last shot of the movie is the last shot of the movie is really Mila Kunis walking away wearing his sunglasses with his machete, like she's now going to go back to her town and save it. But one of the last shots of the movie is Malcolm McDowell taking the newly printed Bible that they've printed many copies of and putting it on the shelf next to the Torah and the Quran. So wait, you're telling me the other two books of the world's largest religions exist, still exist.
Listen, the Denzels of those religions got there first.
Right, exactly. But you needed the King James Bible too? The one that everybody's like, that translation sucks?
The Jewish guy got here 2 weeks ago. The Muslim guy was here last week.
Exactly.
You know.
Oh boy, is this movie so bad. And on top of it, like the Hughes brothers, like they tried to do some stylistic thing where everything is gray, everything, and like, I get it, but like, it's so dull. It's not fun. And I think like this movie would be 100% different if it came out in a post Fury Road world. I think it'd be more colorful, more interesting, but it's not. It's like somebody tried to make a fun action movie out of The Road, and that's just depressing. So yeah, Book of Eli, I cannot recommend. It's so bad.
One day, I heard a voice. It's hard to explain, but it was like it like it was coming from inside of me. But I could hear it as clear as I could hear you talking to me now.
What did this voice say?
It led me to a place where I found the book, buried under some rubble. The voice told me to carry the book out west.
It's looking like Evanescence, the movie.
Yes,
vibes,
yeah.
You know?
Truly wake me up inside. Like,
can't wake up. I this is a good example though of what I imagine Denzel being attracted to. Like,
right.
This is a very plain story of like on the right side of things with God, and you're gonna deliver the thing, and like this is important, and it's not complicated. Like this, everything you were telling me, like, oh, that tracks probably. I don't think Denzel's probably a complicated person. Like I think like he's probably, just like good, evil, winners,
Right.
losers. What is
well,
right,
I mean,
what is wrong.
even in some of those articles, he was talking about like his kids, like every, even when I was working, my wife would make sure she'd read a Bible passage with them every morning. And like, yeah, I think it's a very like sort of regimented, but once again, he did go to like a military school for part of his youth. So like, I think part of that organization comes from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else that you saw that you didn't particularly like? There's a couple of things. I mean, obviously,
What is that fucking Ryan Reynolds movie, Safe House?
Safe House. Oh my God. Safe House was in contention for me, but also so was Heart Condition and Carbon Copy and like all these like bad early
The
90s. Like,
whoopsie-doopsies?
yeah, the racism oopsie doopsie. And I know there's going to be some contingent of our audience that's like, you didn't give it to Heart Condition, but like, who's going to watch, like more people are going to watch The Book of Eli, and I'd rather tell them, hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
than like,
It's funny, like Safe House, I was like, man, Ryan Reynolds used to like, he really was searching for the thing before Deadpool. And like, if we were to say like, what is Ryan Reynolds' most popular movie that's not a Deadpool thing? The Proposal probably is like his most popular. And that's because Sandra Bullock is incredible. And like, and he's good in it too. Like, I'm not going to shit on that movie or him in that movie, but like really outside that, like he was searching for something. Can I be an action star? Can I be a comedy star? Like what is the thing?
I have said several times, like he did Deadpool and realized like it was such a good thing for his career that he just became Deadpool.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll say Safe House is like a complicated, convoluted, thriller vibe of like, I'm the bad guy, but am I actually the bad guy? Are you like too complicated.
But it's also really bad. And Ryan Reynolds is out of his league especially when he's with Denzel.
Yeah. Oh my God. The girlie in that movie is, she was in Up in the Air is all I'm thinking of.
Was she? I don't even remember.
Whatever.
But yeah, there's been some speed bumps in the career, obviously. Once again, I do not hold Virtuosity as one of them because
no, I don't think it. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Not at all.
Yeah.
It's not. It is not. Okay. Let's get into our 5-star reviews. So I'm gonna make perhaps a like, I don't know. I don't think this movie's a 5-star movie, but I think the performance is so good that I'm just gonna go with it. I'm going with 1989's The Hurricane.
I really thought you were gonna go with Unstoppable. Wow, I can't even read a room.
Unstoppable is very fun though. Like
he's great in Unstoppable.
Yeah,
it's
that's a good TBS movie. Like parentheses complimentary. Okay, I'm going with The Hurricane. I hadn't watched it since I watched it in college, and I gotta say, like I mentioned before, this is a movie where, definitely with the idea in mind that we are going to teach people something, and we are also going to like, it's telling the story of like an American man who was greatly wronged by this justice system that is still fucked up. It's an incredible story in a lot of different ways. That if it was just about it, so it's a bio pic about Reuben the Hurricane Carter, who was a very famous boxer. He was a prize fighter, won a bunch of things, went off to the military, came back, and for all of his life though, there was this kind of like corrupt, racist fucking cop who was always out to get him.
Yeah.
And
played by
sets him
Dan
up.
Hedaya.
Yes. Yes. And sets him up for this crime that he did not commit. Him and like this, his driver, police are like, we're looking for two black guys who shot up this bar. And the cops were able to lean on the one or two witnesses, and that's it. Like, they're in jail and that's it. If even that in itself is kind of like is great fodder for a movie. Like,
Yeah.
this character, like the hurricane, like, who sings that song? Is it Bob Dylan?
It's Bob Dylan. It's a Bob Dylan song.
The song,
which by the way, if I had a nickel for every time that Denzel Washington was in a movie that's named after a Bob Dylan song, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice because of the Mighty Quinn.
It is weird. So there was a lot of social unrest around his imprisonment. He writes this this biography while he's in prison, and like that by itself would have been like an incredible story, but there's this like extra added layer of a kid in Toronto picks up the book and starts this relationship with Ruben, and him and his adoptive guardians. I don't even know what their deal is, but it's literally 2 men and a woman. One of the men is Liev Schreiber. The other 2 are fine people that I don't remember. But they have like taken guardianship of a teenage black boy from New York to get him, you know, this is kind of like the whitewashing, like we don't really know what the vibe is, but like they're like, we want to help him because he's smart and like, you know, whatever. He starts a relationship with Reuben Carter, and all of them together try to get his freedom. And it's like a billion years after the fact. Is it 40 years, 30 years? It's a long time. He's in prison for a long time.
Yeah.
1985 was when he gets out, and he got in, I don't know. It's a long time. But anyway, so like the story is pretty incredible, and it's pretty, you know, moving and profound. Again, Denzel in his bag, telling the story of a great American, a great Black American, who, you know, overcomes the injustice of the country, but is a patriot all in his own right. The reason why I'm picking this movie and this performance is because this character is so complicated, and so like this performance, I don't know many people who could have done this performance. There's a scene, an extended scene, where they throw him into lockup by himself.
Yeah.
And he's going crazy. Like, he's hearing all his inner demons who are calling him weak, a loser, stupid, don't trust anybody. He's having this episode, and it's astounding. It's astounding how Denzel's able to play both the hard and the soft of this man. Like, he's, for a man who has been through so much in life and has had to fight for everything, and but also is beaten up, like literally physically and emotionally. And he says to the kid who visits him, he's like, the way I survive in here is by not dreaming, is by not loving, is by not, you know, wanting. I can't want things if I'm going to survive in here. He is so hard because it's too much. There's a scene where his wife comes to the prison, is like, we're going to keep fighting. And he's like, no,
Yeah.
I can't do it.
That scene, I love that scene, honestly.
I'm sorry. It's over. It's finished. I'm gonna die in here, May, so...
Baby, listen, there is still a chance. Now,
Listen
all
to
we
me,
have to do is hang on.
There's nothing to hang on to, May. I want you to divorce me, you understand? And I don't want you to come back down here.
No, now you listen to me. There are still things that we can do. We just
I'm not gonna
get
be
you
a weight
out of here.
hanging around your neck.
You are no weight around
Well,
my
then
neck.
you're a weight around mine. Now, I can't do all the years I gotta do in here knowing that they can take your beautiful face away from me anytime they want to. You understand?
This scene where the lawyers are like, we can't go to the federal court. Like, you're going to lose all this. And he's like, no, this is it. I can't go on anymore. He is able to be this like strong pillar, but like whose insides are crumbling. And I just think it's so masterful. I think where I'm at is like, this is a 5-star performance and like a 4-star movie.
Yeah.
I think the ending
I would even drop the movie a little lower, but I agree. I don't want to cut you off, but I'm glad you picked this because I began to worry that we maybe didn't give the Hurricane enough attention but like his performance is amazing in it. And yeah, I don't love the movie. And I do think the wraparound is a bit much when it's like all the bumbling white people who are trying to help him. But
right.
like,
I mean, it's funny because like, I guess, and they tell us like his lawyers are like, there have been a lot of people who have come through the years thinking they can help and they can never do the thing. I think they smoothed over all these white people just to be kind of like perfect paragons of whatever. Like, I don't know what they do with their real lives. I don't like, they just like are perpetually at home gardening or whatever, and like have the resources to move to DC to help out. But
from Canada.
Yeah. And like, movies aren't like, this is not truth. Like there, there's probably
no.
They tell us that they've like kind of combined characters together and whatever. But I do think like it's just an astounding performance. And, after the fact, I was just like, man, like everyone needs to know who Reuben Hurricane Carter is. Everyone needs to know about how, the American justice system just is a fucking grinder for Black men, who, can be, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It literally doesn't matter. You can be at the top of the world, making money for a bunch of people. You can be just someone on the street, random kid, like it will fucking chew you up and spit you out, and people don't care. The state of New Jersey did not give a fuck about Reuben Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I was deeply affected. And I think, talk about another movie. I think this year he was nominated for the Oscar and he won like every award up until the Oscars, and fucking Kevin Spacey won for American Beauty.
Oh my God.
And he says in those interviews or in those stories we were reading after that night, he says he drank a lot and he was bitter.
Yeah.
He said he really was bitter that he didn't win. And he was like, I was looking around about like, oh, okay, I can do all this, this work, and this is what you guys are gonna give awards to. Okay. Like, and it kind of like, I think it switched something in him where he was like, oh, similar to fucking Reuben Carter being like, I can't want this that much. I can't, and probably I wouldn't fucking blame him. He's like, I'm going to go to work and then go home because you guys clearly aren't fucking with me, are like, you can't see, all this incredible work. Because again, this is like, he won every other award that was like from critics and whatever associations, but like his peers were like, you know what, Kevin Spacey, American Beauty, wow.
Yeah.
Fucked up. But yeah, The Hurricane. I want to say I watched it for free on something.
Yes, because I also watched it for, I think, or maybe it's on Peacock, but like,
yeah, it's on Peacock.
Yeah,
if you have Peacock, if you're watching The Traitors, after Traitors,
watch The Hurricane.
Watch The Hurricane.
I'm also gonna kind of go. I think there's a lot of movies in his oeuvre that you could watch and just be blown away by performance. We've said several times that he's the greatest living American actor, obviously. And I think, unfortunately, my choice maybe seems a little conventional, but I truly don't know if you'll ever get a greater sort of range of all the things that he can do than Malcolm X. And coming so early in his career, 1992, as I mentioned before, and this movie is sprawling. It goes from the time he's a child in Michigan to when he's a teenager. And this is when Denzel takes over, when he's a teenager in the 40s in New York, when he's a criminal, working with Spike Lee. I believe West Indian Archie is the character's name. And, being a thief, but wearing the zoot suits in these incredible costumes by Ruthie Carter, in these grandiose like musical numbers. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. The neon 1940s New York, going to the like really dark, contrasty prison. He goes to jail. And that's where Malcolm X learns about the Nation of Islam, converts to becoming a Muslim, and really when he gets out of jail, 6 years is the amount of time he spends there. He changes his surname from Little to X, and he begins working as a public speaker, and begins to preach the nation's message. And from there, obviously becomes the figure that he is in history. And then through that, through his adulthood, through bitterness for preaching separation for the races, falling out of favor with the Nation of Islam, converting to Sunni Islam, starting to preach tolerance instead of racial separation, through his assassination. All of it is just this arc. And it's so funny because we were talking about those interviews that, he's like, I am an actor. He's like, I am not Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. He's like, in fact, Malcolm X might be some of the hardest work I had to do because I am not him. And I think that's what's so brilliant about it is like when you watch that movie, he is Malcolm X. Like he truly, and like Denzel is like, I would even go out on a limb and say Denzel's better looking than Malcolm X. But when you watch this movie, you're like, no, he is that guy. He's this thin, powerful man who just like is preaching his message and getting it out there. And it's such a fascinating epic. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And like I said, the peaks and valleys that he has to accomplish, I think he's doing these amazing recreations of all these public speeches that Malcolm X had, but maybe one of the best scenes in the movie is literally just him and Angela Bassett yelling at each other about their lives and their futures and about what he's doing and about how they're even going to be able to survive if he continues down this path post the Kennedy assassination and down like, if he's going to be able to stay true to his convictions.
Baines is the one who saved my life. When I was in prison, crawling around like an animal, he's the one that brought me to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought me back from the dead. You out of your... Don't you raise your voice in my house!
Ask them why they have new cars and houses.
Is that what this is about, Betty? Do you want some new furniture? Do you want some cars?
What do we have? What do we have, Malcolm? Broken down jalopy. The clothes on our backs. Huh?
So you want some new clothes? All right, I'll get you some.
We don't
You're not happy
own
with
our
what we
own
have
home.
here?
What about our children? What about me? You don't even own life insurance.
Look, Betty, the Nation of Islam will provide for you and the children if anything happens to me.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you blind?
It's a great, multifaceted, really beautiful performance, and allows him to do so much. And I think, we've talked about before, it's not any less impressive to play a person that you can research. It sometimes feels a little easier because you worry about doing an imitation. And I was just saying like how much I think he really like embodies Malcolm X, but I don't think he's ever really doing an imitation. I don't think it ever like moves into like pantomime. Caricature. Like I think he's really like giving a full lived in human breathing performance, and that on its own is commendable. When you add all the other stuff on top of it, all the different genres the movie moves through, all the different, like I just, it's endlessly watchable and fascinating and important.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Totally. I mean, you hit it out of the park. I mean, it is like this epic, and I want to say like on the whole, Malcolm X is a better movie than The Hurricane. But I do think like those two men are very similar in that like they are men who learn a lot about themselves and who they trust and who they don't trust. You know, Ruben is very much he's like fuck white people. Like at the beginning, like he's like they know that that's not fucking for me, and then has this kind of like coming around of like oh there is and again I think it's this idea that like Denzel kind of likes also like he kind of likes the idea of like white people can be fucked up and we got to keep them at a like arm's length, but also maybe wow like me learning the thing of like, okay, you do have to kind of soften up a little bit and God help me, like hashtag not all white people. But like Malcolm in the same way, like, you know, he went through this journey of like himself and like the segregation and like actually harmony. Like there's a lot there. And I think it reflects in a lot of his movies. I think Remember the Titans is kind of, you know, same way, The Great Debaters. He's trying to like find spaces for films where black people are having dignity, respect, and justice, but also making space to open their arms to allies and the white people who can help and who are, you know, not assholes and not racists, which is kind of a very, you know, big tent idea that it's the Charles Xavier of it all, right? Like it's you know, so yeah, I mean, yes, you killed that. Malcolm X is phenomenal. Like it's a long movie that just feels like a shot of adrenaline.
Yeah, truly. Was there anything else you saw that you particularly liked? I don't want people to think that by me picking something so early in his career that I'm saying that like because I just really want to reiterate, and I know you didn't love it, but like Roman J. Israel Esquire is one of my favorite performances of his outside of Malcolm X and The Hurricane. And like, like that movie was like 8 years ago at this point. I Tragedy Macbeth. Like I didn't love that movie experience, but like he's very good in it.
He's
like,
very good, but my God, that movie to me is a slog.
I
think we have to talk about Fences. Incredible.
Fence. Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's not like a driving force in The Great Debaters. Like he's like the kids are really like kind of the main thing, but I do love that movie and he directed it and it holds up very, very well.
And if we're gonna do that, I would also then add Antoine Fisher to that as well, because I think those are good kind of companion piece movies to it. Like you can see the through line as to why he wanted to direct both of those movies.
Also kind of in the Malcolm X era, we've talked already about this, but Much Ado About Nothing and Mississippi Masala are very good early career works.
I genuinely thought you were going to pick Mississippi Masala as your 5-star review.
I mean, it is very, very good, but we've talked about it a lot. So
right, exactly, but it is very, very good, and I would definitely back you up on that. All right, that's enough of our picks. Why don't we get into our fast forward and talk about what Denzel Washington is up to? He's currently in New York right now because he's in rehearsals.
In my bedroom right now.
In your bedroom. You wish. Don't break that 70-year-old man's hip. He is currently in rehearsal for Othello with Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm gonna say something controversial. I think the stage is where Jake Gyllenhaal should be, because I think in the last like 10 years, Jake Gyllenhaal has become too big for film and just like is playing everything to the rafters. And I think on stage it probably works. And on
this is no pun intended, but it kind of equalizes like his over the topness makes sense on the stage where you can kind of sit back and be like, oh, he's kind of good.
He also recently wrapped Spike Lee's new movie, which is a remake of the Akira Kurosawa film High and Low, which I think in very Spike Lee style has been stylized as highest to lowest. And then also there have been rumblings that he has been chatting with Ryan Coogler about joining Black Panther 3. I don't know if that's even Ryan Coogler's next movie or not, but there has been talk about Denzel Washington doing a Marvel movie. Obviously, like, if Denzel Washington has to show up in a Marvel movie, I want it to be a Black Panther movie. But like,
right.
also,
I guess I don't know enough about like the Black Panther universe to be like, who the fuck would he be playing? But if it gets him back with why I'm always forgetting her name.
Angela Bassett?
Angela Bassett.
Well, she died in the last one, so...
Oh, fuck, I forgot she died!
But hey, you know what? She could show up as a ghost, ghost, or...
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there has been chatter about what next August Wilson play is going to be. He has said that he does not see himself starring in any of them anymore, that he is mostly going to be in the production seat, partially because he just doesn't really see a role for him in them, but also because he's going to be doing Equalizer films until he dies now. So, but I believe the next one they're planning that they're already sort of in early stages of is Joe Turner's Come and Gone, which is the one that's set in the 1910s. So,
I mean, I haven't seen The Piano Lesson. I hear it's really amazing. Ma Rainey's I thought was really good.
Yeah.
If all Denzel does for the end of time is make Equalizers and produce fucking August Wilson movies, like, we got it made, babes. Like,
yeah.
How lucky are we to reap the rewards of this very excellent, fine actor, director, producer. And like, if he wants to go to church on Sundays, like, fine, great. I don't care.
And that's the interesting thing, right? So he is 70, and that, you know, we've had Denzel Washington for a very long time. I do think, honestly, I don't know, because he loves acting so much. I don't know if he will ever retire, but I do think that there probably is a point in his life where he is going to want to retire, because, like, once again, he's been doing these like heavy action movies in his 70s. You know, I don't know how much toll it's going to take on him. I don't want to see him retire because I love watching Denzel Washington on screen. I will always show up for a Denzel Washington movie, but I do think, you know, this is not me saying he has to retire anytime soon. I think we have plenty of years left of Denzel Washington, but I do wonder, like, what will be the stopping point? When will he become that preacher that he's so prophesized to become? And what will that look like? I truly don't know. It's interesting. We don't normally get like a glimpse of what somebody's post-acting career is going to look like, but I feel like he's been hinting at that. I think this getting baptized in this last year was like a step towards that. So,
I mean, I think, like, and he said, like, acting has been his preaching, right? Like,
right.
And a lot of his movies are that, like, this, what we've been talking about: harmony, justice, right and wrong, black and white. And I think, I think he obviously he loves his faith, but I do think he loves acting. It's funny, even in all these like kind of thriller movies, he's always flashing that smile. He's always laughing.
Yeah. Even in Gladiator 2, which I watched today and it was not for me.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So yeah, I don't know. A part of me is like, is he gonna be like fucking Judi Dench, just like until listen, like, he hasn't been drinking for 10 years. He says he like has his new nutritionist and he's working out.
A personal trainer that was recommended to him by Lenny Kravitz.
Yes, his good friend Lenny Kravitz. So I mean, I think he still looks great.
Yeah.
And
oh, absolutely.
If Harrison Ford can be fucking making Marvel movies, and I don't know how old Harrison Ford is, but he's
123.
That's what I thought. That's what I figured. So yeah, I see a lot, you know, I mean, I don't know that he would ever do this, but I would love for Denzel to be in the like book clubiverse of like just I I want him to be like lovey-dovey guy. I kind of want him to like I want that Mississippi masala kind of come hither. Oh my God. Best Man's Wedding universe. Like, I want him to be someone's dad who like is getting a divorce and like, that's what I want. What if he was Regina Hall's dad?
Oh my God. Brilliant. I love the reaction you just had is correct. Well, first of all, we're going to go see Othello
yes,
together.
Yes.
So, but I want so bad a rom-com, a late in life rom-com with him reteamed with Sheryl Lee Ralph.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I want it to be glitzy. I want it to be glamorous.
Yes.
I do not even want them to skimp. I don't want these to be normal human people. I want them to be
stars.
Rich and
Yes.
like beautiful gowns, like, but get Ruthie Carter to design those outfits for that.
Maybe Cheryl is a star and she like falls in love with like a trash man and it's Denzel.
Yeah, it's Denzel. Oh,
yeah. And she tries to like glitz him up, but he's never gonna change. That's
He's
who he
salt
is.
of the earth, baby.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. He's so charming and so kind of like, I bet you he gives good hugs.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's the thing. Louis and I keep referencing some of these interviews. We listened, there's an interview that he did with the New York Times. I listened to it because it also came out on their podcast. I'm probably going to be using some sound clips in this episode. But like, I think he's so charming and I think it like disarms, you're either like, oh no, am I fucking this up around him? Or you're just instantly like, totally in it. Like,
can you hang or can you not hang?
Yeah.
In the article, he says, sometimes you just got to let the water wash over you. Don't think too hard.
Don't think too hard.
Yeah. And so I would say as a closing thing, don't think too hard when you're diving into the Denzel universe. Just have fun. Just like be in it. Some movies are dumber than others, but like, whatever. He's great in all of them.
Absolutely. Well, I think that wraps up Denzel. If you want to contact us about this episode or any of our previous episodes, you can always find us on Blue Sky at The Mixed Reviews.
We're on Facebook. Just type in The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to email us, you can write us a little love note at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're also on Instagram at _mixed_reviews.
And if you want to listen to the rest of our shows, just like you listen to this episode, you can find our back catalog on any major podcast app. We're on Apple, Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on the Google, we're on Amazon, Audible. If you want to stop by and one of those beautiful places, write us a 5-star rating, write us a little review. We'll read it on the show.
And hello, we forgot to mention we are part of the Glitterjaw Podcast Collective, honeys.
Queer Podcast Collective. Did you hear?
Did you heard? A bunch of shows over there. They're all fun, gay, and we've been on like all of them.
Yeah, not all of them yet, but close. Gotta catch them all. But I do want to give a shout out. They just put out a new episode of Screonk with my co-host from the Q Division podcast, which is another show that's on the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. That's Chels, and Chels just did the episode of Shin Godzilla over at Screonk, and you should go listen to that because she's great and they're great.
Yes,
two great tastes that go great together.
And also, if you would like, join us on Patreon, $5. We do our kind of current movie watching there, and hang out. We have a good time. Thanks everybody. Next time we're having a special guest, a return, if you will.
We're gonna get top of the morning to you.
What? How does one get top of the morning?
I don't know, Louis.
Okay,
you just do.
Okay. Well, with that, good night, everyone. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, my baby. Oh, my baby, I love the way she walks. When the girl gets sleepy, I love the way she baby talk. And you know she like to talk to her baby. Now, here we go.